best they can on that piece of string. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1.
Hook is a flawless routine.
Oh, he won. Hey, he won.
There are no forces or switches necessary. Your spectators can really pull any string. And best of all, it's completely safe so that you can focus on delivering a heart-pounding performance. Here's what happens. You display several pieces of string and a fish hook, explaining that only one of the strings is tied to the hook. Then you place the fish hook in your mouth. With multiple strings dangling from your lips, brave spectators are invited to pull on a string of their choice until only one string remains. You then grab the final string, confidently pull the fish hook out of your mouth, and proving it was the only one tied all along.
You didn't do it. There you go. Hey!
You already want left tied on there, yes? There we go.
Yo, that's insane.
Now, if you know anything about roulette routines, you know that sometimes things can go wrong. But with Hook, that can never happen. Because not only is it the safest roulette routine, it's also the scariest because of where it happens, in your mouth. And you'll love the secret method behind it. It gave me the confidence to go out and perform it, and I know it'll do the same for you. This is Hook by Eric Ross. Hey everyone, Nick Locapo here from Penguin Magic, and if you are here watching this video with me, it is because you purchased Hook by Eric Ross, which I believe to be the most shocking, terrifying, awesome close-up roulette that you could possibly show to somebody. The method, routine, incredible. You're gonna love this. In this instructional video, I'll show you the secret behind Hook. We'll take a look at some performances, and I'll show you everything you need to know to perform it. And along with give you a lot of thoughts and ideas that make it accessible to just about any performer as well. So we got a lot of fun stuff to get to. Let's get going. Let's take a look inside the tin that you've received, which contains everything you need to perform Hook. So it opens up, it's got some hinges on the back, just opens up here in the front, the emergency survival kit. This actually doubles as the way you'll carry this around in performance, but I'll talk more about that in the setup. On the inside here, we have a few different things. First is the string. This is the string that you'll be using to pull the hook out of your mouth. It's been bundled up. I'll show you how to cut it during the setup portion of the trick. We also have, you might have to, it's probably floating around in here, is this little key ring. This key ring is very important. This is an integral part of the method, which we'll talk about right after this section. Okay, so you need the key ring. That's very important. This might be already attached to, last but not least, the hook. Okay, mine was floating around, but I think I've seen it in some cases where it's already attached to the fish hook right here. So your ring might be already on there, but I'll show you how to get it on there in the setup portion. And last but not least is the fish hook. Now this fish hook has been specially prepared. You'll notice if you're familiar with fish hooks, it doesn't have any of those sharp barbs. So those have been removed and the points have been dulled down. Now it is still quite sharp because you can't get it completely dull, but you will notice if you feel around on this, it's not going to pierce your skin just by touching it, but it is still pretty dangerous. So we'll talk about safety in just a moment, but this is the other fish hook. Otherwise, there's nothing else gimmicked about it. It is just a fish hook with it's been dulled down and the barbs have been removed. Okay, so you have the fish hook, the key ring, which may or may not already be on the fish hook, and then the little length of string and the tin. Okay, so let's take a look at how Hook works first, and then I'll show you the setup and we'll dive into the performance and performance theory. Okay, so let's get going. First and foremost, before we discuss any of the secrets or any of the methods behind Hook, You should not perform this unless you are 18 years or older. Also, do not even attempt to perform this without watching this instructional video through all the way to the end, and maybe even a second time, and you put the practice in to make sure that you're doing it safe and effectively. The method behind hook is simple and safe, but you need to know everything about it before you start putting this in your mouth. So if, you know, we don't want anything bad to happen to you out there, do not put this in your mouth until you have learned everything there is to know about this trick. Now let's learn the trick, okay? This is the secret behind hook, and man, when I first learned this secret, I was like, this is awesome. So I will show you how to set this up in just a bit. I just want to give you the basic idea so that we know what we're dealing with here. This is the exposed setup of the hook. On the hook, I have that key ring that we just saw attached to the hook that came in the kit, and then attached to the key ring, I have 4 pieces of string. So this would be in your mouth, okay? And I'll show you how to do that in just a bit. But the reason why the spectators are able to grab any string and you're still left with the final string being attached to the hook is because when this is in your mouth, all of the strings are attached to the hook, okay? It's just that when they pull on it, it is sliding through the key ring. There's not much holding it in place, but there's enough holding each one of these strings in place so that when they get to the final string, doesn't matter which ones they pull, right? You give it a yank, right? The final string is still going to be pinched. So when you pull this out of your mouth, it's going to appear that the hook is tied to the fish hook, but it's not. It's just simply pinched on the inside of that key ring, okay? But at this point, and we'll talk about all the different ways that you can display this at the end of the routine. At this point, for all intents and purposes, this just looks like it's tied to the fish hook, right? It's pretty awesome. So that is essentially the core secret behind hook. Now let's talk about how to set it up, and then we'll dive into a full performance. And join me down here on the table. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to cut our string, all right? Now you've been provided a lot of string, so enough, I think it's about, I was told about 15 feet or so. There's a lot of string here. And this stuff is awesome and perfect for the trick. You want to cut yourself, in my opinion, and this can vary from the type of performance you want to do. I've seen somebody do this from a stage before, but for close-up, anywhere from 12 to 15 inches is really good. So for example, this is the string that I had earlier. I don't have a ruler here, so I'm just going to line that up because I know that's I believe I cut mine 15 inches. So that'll be about 15 inches there. And you're just going to cut yourself. Oh God, these scissors are awful. Wow, can barely cut that string. Just gonna cut yourself a length of string. I would cut yourself anywhere from 4 to 6 strings, okay? So you should have plenty to cut yourself enough of that. So cut yourself up 4 to 6, and then I'm just gonna grab the rest of mine. You've got your string for the trick. So I'm just gonna line up all my strings here, and you wanna keep them all the same length. They can vary just a little bit, but once you get your string, get yourself, what do I have here? I have 5. That's gonna be one of the choices we're gonna talk about later, is how many strings do you use for the trick. I like to use 4. We'll run with 5 here throughout the setup. Okay, the next thing you gotta do is get this key ring on the fish hook. Now, if it's already on the fish hook, you don't have to worry about it. But if it came not on the fish hook, or if you need to get it off for any particular reason, well, it's gonna go on there just as you think. This key ring is just like the key ring that you have like for your house keys or your car keys, right? Now, you're gonna want this thing, like, it doesn't need to be super tight. It'll work whether it's tight or loose, but to get it on there, go ahead and just give it a nice bend out, right? So that it's got a little bit of opening there. And then what you're gonna do is just get it onto the fish hook. Be careful with the fish hook, it is dulled down, but just get that key ring on there all the way so that it is completely on, all right? So if it wasn't on there, you just got to get that on there, and then you're good, all right? So let's talk about how you get the string onto this key ring to be set up, all right? And the way that it works is, again, you're going to be sliding it in to that opening on the key ring. So you want to put it not, you're going to need the opening not like where the hook here is. You're just going to get it towards the bottom side, opposite from where the fish hook starts. All right, here's a close-up of placing the strings onto the key ring. I kind of hold the fishing hook and then kind of pinch the key ring to hold it in place. Because what we're going to be doing is taking the string and sliding it underneath the top layer of that key ring, right? And then I'm going to move this one down because we're going to put more strings on there, right? So you can see that it starts there. I've moved it all the way over there. And you want to keep like a ½ inch, an inch, you know, sticking out of the top, because the extra thread here is how far it has to go to get pulled out. Let's do another one. So I have another string here. I'm going to move this opening to the top and then lay this on it. I kind of pinch it down and then just I kind of hold it like tight and then slide it underneath like that. You can see I got caught there a little bit. There we go, just a little piece of strand hanging out there. Just slide that over. And I got about the same length. Do another one. I guess what I'm doing is I'm kind of spotting the spot that I want to get it, which is about here. I place it right on where I want it and then use my thumb to slide it up and underneath that key ring. And you want to do one at a time. You don't want to risk getting any of these like tangled up or knotted up, right? And you can see once you get used to it, it is very easy to do. And I'm doing 5 right here. Okay, so there you go. That's how you get them onto the fish hook. And there you go. So I have all of my strings right there. If you were to pull any one of these, it's just going to slip right out of the key ring, yeah? So what you want to do is get this stuff nice and straight, because now we're about to put it into the tin. There's a couple things I want to talk about with the tin. First, I know it came nice and cool with this little foam insert on the inside there. Just remove it, okay? Just take it out. You're not going to want it when you're performing the trick. I don't know. Maybe you'll like it, but I usually remove it because I just want this thing to be floating on the inside of here. And when I do this, what I want to do is you want to, because when you start the trick, you're going to want to be able to pull the hook out separately, and then just because you're going to be hiding this stuff, you want to be able to, like, the first thing you want to grab is the hook and then have nothing get tangled up, right? So what I do is I just kind of gently loop this string up like that, place it in the tin, and then I just make sure that my hook, see that, is nice and separate from the rest of it. And, you know, believe it or not, this stuff doesn't really, even though it can be shaken around in your pocket, it's kind of going to just stay as it is. So when I reach down, I know that I can pull this hook out without it being hooked on, like tangled up on any of the other string. So I can come right out with it like this and start the routine. But we'll talk about that in just a second. That is everything you need to know about the setup for hook. But other than that, let's take a look at the full routine.
This is a fishing hook that I found there, and they played it. They called it a game. It's a weird game. There's 4 strings here. One of these strings is attached to the hook. 3 of them are not attached to the hook. Okay. The game is to find the one that's not attached, kind of like the wishbone, right? But they did it in their hand like this. I'm gonna go a little step further.
Oh no! Oh hell no!
All right, wait. Really? Yeah. All right.
You're stressing me out. You're stressing me out.
I know. I'm used to it.
Oh my god. I can't.
Wow.
Pick one. That's on you, baby.
Yeah.
That's on you, baby. Pick the string.
Hold it. Don't move it, Mom.
I wanted the middle one. I don't like it. I don't like
You're
it.
gonna pull it. Not yet.
Pull it.
Yeah,
Just
I
kidding.
know.
He said not yet. I don't like this.
Whenever you're ready.
Trust Chris. I don't like it. I don't.
Now you gotta really pull it though.
I did. I
go. Go.
Oh my goodness.
What do you want?
I think I might throw up.
There we go. One.
Okay. Now.
One. We got one more.
Rain, go ahead. Rain, or why me?
Come on.
You've been decided. Why? I've been elected.
Oh, really. True, okay? Anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Blink at me when.
huh?
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for good attention. Souvenir? No, you don't want that. You don't want that. Yeah.
There's 4 pieces of string. 3 of the pieces, they're like 17 inches long. 3 of them are not tied to anything, they're just pieces of string. One of them, however, is tied to a fish hook. Okay? The idea is I'm gonna have 3 of you pick a string. And the idea is to pick a string that is not tied to the fish hook, right? And I don't know how it always works, but it just does, right? People always end up picking the string that isn't tied to the fish hook. I don't know how, but that's the whole challenge, okay? So here we go. Now I'm gonna pull this out in a way so that you can't tell which string is tied to the fish hook, right? Okay? So 3 of these are not tied to the fish hook, but 1 of them is, okay? And like I said, you guys are gonna choose one of the strings, and I don't know how it works, but it always does. You will choose the string that is not attached to the fish hook, okay? Okay, here we go. Pick one. Pick one.
Pull it out. Okay. You got it.
Let's learn the full hook performance. Again, if you are not 18, do not perform this trick. If you have not practiced this trick without watching this instructional video, do not perform this trick. Do not put this in your mouth before learning everything there is to know about the trick. Okay, hook is such a killer routine, and it's important at the beginning of the trick to be as clear as possible with your audience of the rules of the routine, mostly because you can't talk once the fish hook is in your mouth, right? So you have this like section of the trick before it ever starts where you have to kind of lay out all of the ground rules, and then once it's in your mouth, all the fun happens, right? So you want to get really good at communicating clear rules and clarity of effect to your audience before this starts. So, for example, you would say to them, in this box I have something very bizarre. So a couple non-bizarre things and one very bizarre thing. The non-bizarre, I have 5 pieces of string. Now they're just pieces of string about 12 to 15 inches long, however, not attached to anything. However, one of the strings is tied, and then I like to open it up, to a fish hook. And when you do this, you're gonna hide all of the strings in the key ring in your hand because you don't want to show them this bit, right? You're telling them that there are 4 pieces of separate string and one of them is not. It's tied to a fish hook, okay? So I'll just do that through. I say I have 5 pieces of string in this box. 4 of them are just separate pieces of string, not attached to anything. However, one of them is tied to this fish hook, okay? And once you don't need the tin once you get it out of here, you just hold it off to the side. You want it on the table though. Now, you're holding this because you don't want your spectators to see this, obviously, but then you're also going to tell them, now, 4 of these strings are attached to nothing. I'm just kind of holding them back here because I don't want you to know which one of the strings is tied to the fish hook, okay? So we have 4 separate strings, 1 string is tied to the fish hook, and you don't know which one is. In a moment, 4 of you are going to choose a string, okay? And no matter what string you pull, which string you choose, you're going to give it a sharp pull. And when you do, it will be a string that is not attached to a fish hook. So at the top here, I'm laying out the entire routine because again, once this goes into my mouth, I can't really talk about it again, right? So you want people to understand 4 separate strings, 1 is tied to the fish hook. In a moment, you don't have to tell them that you're going to put it in the mouth. In fact, don't tell them you're going to put it in your mouth at the top because you'll lose out on a very theatrical moment. But in a moment, some of you are going to choose a string and you're going to pull that string. Once you've chosen a string in your mind, commit to that string, and once you have it, you're going to pull it and you're going to pull it hard, okay? That's kind of what you want to tell them. Then you're going to put the fish hook in your mouth. And this is a really, really awesome, actually, some of the biggest reactions you'll get is just simply doing this part, okay? Now this thing needs to go in your mouth in a very specific way because obviously, well, we'll talk about it. And I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this yet because I haven't really rehearsed putting this in my mouth and teaching you how to do it. But what you're going to be doing is putting the hook on the inside of your mouth. And when I mean inside, I mean on the inside of your teeth. The bar is going to go through your teeth and you're going to be biting down on the bar right there, okay? This key ring, it's very important that it's in front of your teeth when it is in your mouth, okay? You don't want it on the outside of your lips though, so it's like a little bit, you're gonna have to figure out the right spot for this to go in your mouth. Honestly, it does not fit well in my mouth. It took some time for me to be like, okay, this is where it is. So, and let's take a step back for a second. Just get comfortable putting this in your mouth, first of all. Don't even worry about biting down. Take some time for yourself to make sure that you are comfortable putting it in there and figuring out, do you like one barb, do you like it like in this position or do you like it in this position? Find the spot in your mouth that this can fit and feel somewhat comfortable. But again, you're going to be biting on here. So I'll try to show you here. So for me, I like to have the 2 at the bottom and this one at the top. And when it gets in there, it slightly turns. It's going to be different for you because everybody's mouth is different. And I'm going to bite down on the bar here. Okay. Let's talk about putting this fish hook in your mouth. When you do it, you're going to be hiding these strings with your hand, right? So, and it's not going to be that hard because you're placing the fish hook in your mouth and people are going to be freaking out. So you don't have to be like super cozy with it, but the position you're going to get in is you're going to be just holding the fish hook, right? Because you need to be able to place this on the inside of your mouth and it's going to go in this way. Now, the orientation of the fish hook is going to be really up to you, okay? For me, I know that I like it with the 2 pieces at the bottom. You might be different. I don't know. Everybody's mouth is going to be a different shape. You just want to find the spot that is the most comfortable. This part is going to go on the inside of your mouth, and then your teeth are going to bite down on this bar, and you're going to be leaving the key ring on the outside of your teeth, between the teeth and the lips, okay? So hopefully you're going to get a good idea of what I'm talking about. I'm going to place the hook in my mouth, bite down on the bar, and leave the key ring in the front. And when the key ring is in the front, you want to wrap your lips around it. You don't want to expose the key ring. Now, it's okay if you expose the strings, the end of the string, because there are loose strings in your mouth. Nobody knows which ones they're attached to, especially if they go in your mouth and then back out. But that key ring is very important, that it is not being bitten by your teeth. Okay, so one more time. Bite down. And be comfortable. Before you let the people pull on this, put this in a comfortable position in your mouth. You don't want it to be uncomfortable when it's in there. Feel around, figure out what feels comfortable. It's going to take you a bit to be comfortable with this in your mouth, and it's going to even take you even more, some gall to pull these strings by yourself. It is nerve-wracking, but once you get used to it, you'll do it every time. It's very safe. It's crazy to say out loud. It's very safe sticking this in your mouth. Be very careful putting this in your mouth. It is very sharp. Okay, so get comfortable with it going in your mouth. Again, you're going to be biting down on the bar, letting this be in the front cavity, and then letting your lips fall around it. So for me, and these strings were very short on there, but for me, it's going to look something like this. Okay, so this ring is in the front part of my mouth. Do not bite on this key ring. That will be sure danger, right? And that's it. Once it's in there, essentially, your job is over. Your job from there on out is getting people to pull the strings, right? So I'm going to put it in my mouth and I'll pull the strings so that you can see. But you want to just make sure that this key ring is not exposed, right? And when you place it in your mouth, don't be afraid to jingle it around and get in the right spot, because you're placing a fish hook in your mouth. It's supposed to look dangerous. So that's what's happening once it's in your mouth. So at the end, when you're down to one string, you want to really frame that moment. We'll talk more about making all these moments play big, but if I had a suggestion on the final one, it is to not just don't pull it out with your fingers, come up top here and let it slowly come out of your mouth. And then hold it up here. So don't immediately start swinging this around. You want everybody to see it, and make sure yourself you look at it. And that's it. And you can just see that it's just hanging on that thread there. We'll talk more about how the theory of this performance plays out in just a second. But from here on out, all you got to do is drop that hook back into the tin with all of your strings, close it up, throw it in your pocket, and you are done with the routine, okay? That is really all of it, you know, because mostly all you have to learn is just getting that fish hook in your mouth and then stand in front of the mirror and feel comfortable pulling those strings yourself. And then I would recommend having your, you know, whoever you hang out with, gently do it, somebody that you trust so that you can get used to how it feels. But, you know, honestly, I've done this trick a lot. I know a lot of people that have done this trick. The string just glides out of that key ring, and it's really quite impossible for it to get hung up. So you just got to get comfortable with it. That's the best thing I can say to you. Other than that, that is essentially the handling. We have more to talk about though, because I want to talk mostly about how to perform this trick. But that's the breakdown of the handling. Let's talk a little bit more. Let's take some time to talk about how to perform hook and just some theory and what to expect the first few times that you go out and actually perform this thing. The first thing I wanted to talk about is just how to practice this trick. Obviously, you want to put in as much practice as possible before you ever show this to somebody. I have a feeling you're already, you know, a little anxious to put the hook in your mouth to start. So start there. Get comfortable knowing what that feels like in your mouth and find the right spot that feels good to you. But more importantly, with the strings, you want to probably stand in front of the mirror and just get comfortable with actually pulling the strings yourself, right? That's how I started when I got started. And then moving on to having somebody you trust pull the strings, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, brother, sister, whoever. Tell them what you're up to and get them to pull the strings for you, just so that you understand that, yeah, there's nothing that can happen if you're just pulling the string and you got the key ring in the right place. So to practice, just trust the people around you and get the reps in that way before you ever go out and learn in front of a real crowd, okay? Now, when it comes to a real crowd, with this trick in particular, you really want to know your audience. And you want to know what other tricks you're showing them as well. Hook, in my opinion, doesn't mean that it wouldn't work for you, but I think generally is not like a great thing to do among other fun card tricks, right? Of course it can be, like if you're David Blaine or something like that, of course it works, but your success is going to hinge based on what you show people before the trick and how they think the type of performer that you are. So this starts, we'll talk about your personality in a bit, but this starts with knowing your audience already. Are these people that you think would be like, really want to see something like this? Then if your judgment is correct, then go for it. But there's certain crowds that you just don't want to do this for. And these would be like more timid people, like if you showed them a few card tricks and they were already kind of like, you know, not that into it or something, definitely don't need to show them hook. I would almost start with like people that are, the way that I would describe it are like people that are ready to party. Do you know what I mean? So you want to have like excited crowd, people that are like up for the challenge, and because they don't know what's about to happen, and you do. You're about to put a fish hook in your mouth and scare the crap out of everybody. So know your audience before you start. And just a side note, another type of group that you don't want to do this for are kind of like nurses. They are not fazed by anything that you show them. So in general, whenever you're doing this type of geek stuff, if you're showing it to somebody that like literally takes care of things much worse than what you're showing them, they are just not going to be the correct audience for this thing either. They might be impressed, who knows, but know your audience before you ever show somebody this trick. Okay, let's talk about going through a performance of the trick and the different moments that exist. First, you want to choose how many pieces of string that you'll use. I prefer 4 because that gives me 3 string pulls. You know, there's 4 strings, but one of them doesn't get pulled, right? One of them is attached to the fish hook. So I like the rule of 3, 1, 2, 3, but of course you can add more strings to it, like up to 6 or whatever. But the reason I use 4 is for that rule of 1, 2, and 3. Don't be afraid to use more strings as well. There's really no real reason behind any of it. And then the first moment that you want to frame is that hook going into your mouth. This is maybe the best moment in the routine, this and the end, okay? So because they don't know what's about to happen, right? You bring the fish hook out, it's a dangerous item. You want to place it slowly into your mouth and really milk that moment. Like maybe pretend like you're gonna and then don't. Or, you know, just make sure everybody sees what you do. Weirdly, and do this in the mirror, if you do it front on, it can be kind of hard to see everything. It does help to turn to the side and place the fish hook in that way. Practice in front of the mirror and see what looks the best viewing angle for the fish hook going into your mouth, all right? And really play on that part. The next is how the strings are pulled. There's ways of like kind of displaying the strings out there for people, but when people pull the string, you don't want like, yeah, they can pull straight down, but it's kind of like a better picture for everybody around if they have the string from here to here and you just pull out that way, right? So instead of pulling down, think about pulling out. Maybe that would work for you, like pulling away from you. And it's just kind of a bigger look around everybody. Think about your body language when you're performing the trick. Are you nervous for them to pull the string? Do you already know where the string is and you're confident in them pulling the string? Are you kind of like evil and scary? Are you relieved after they pull the string, like, oh God, like that another one went down and that you weren't harmed? You know, so think about what your reaction is when they pull the string. It's an important thing to think about there. And then let's talk about the end of the trick. Generally, when you get down to the last 2, it's going to be the most amount of suspense, right? Because they're going to pull the string and it's either going to be right or wrong. Of course, it's going to be correct. So most of the excitement and tension is going to exist on that final string pull. And then you're going to pull the fish hook out of your mouth. Now, again, the biggest reaction is going to kind of come on that last one because when you pull this out, they already expect it to be on there, right? So it's just kind of confirming what they already know is to be true. As a magician, you're looking to see if it's tied, right? But so you want to make sure that fish hook is like on display. Hold it up here and let that come out of your mouth and show it to everybody, right? And don't go swinging it around or anything. Let everybody see it on the fish hook before you place it back into the tin, okay? And then put it in the tin and put it away. One of the biggest questions people have on this is, should you switch the hook for a real fish hook at the end of this routine? And the answer is, you do not have to. Nobody cares about the fish hook at the end of this trick. And the main reason why is because you just took them on this trauma ride of pulling strings out of your mouth. They're just happy to be over with it, and please keep that thing away from me, right? It's also been in your mouth. Nobody is dying to examine this fish hook. They know it was in there. You've proven that it was in there because you just pulled it out of your mouth, put it in the tin, put it away. Nobody cares. You do not need to switch the hook. I promise you, nobody cares about the fish hook at the end of the routine. So now a little bit later, I'll talk about how you can do it, but believe me, you do not need to in this routine. So before I go on to the additional thoughts here, I just wanted to say a couple things about the plot in general. Because what you've studied here in this trick is largely an example of a plot in magic called what we call Russian roulette or smash and stab or just a roulette routine in general. Now the reason we love Hook is because it's scary and safe and plays close up, right? Something that you can carry around with you and do anytime. But if you get interested in this effect, this is a great plot to continue to study, because it's one that the better presentation you can add to this routine, the more that you can pull out of it. Some of the best magicians and mentalists and sideshow performers ever have made their reputations on tricks like this. And it doesn't come with just, doing the trick. It really comes with a careful study of who are they and why are they doing the trick and what's the presentation, okay? And as long as you have those things in mind as you start to perform this routine, you're gonna have a lot of success, because when you start going out there and performing this for people, what you wanna do is observe your audience, what were the reactions like, and you wanna make adjustments, okay? So if you show this to a group of people and they were terrified and screaming and they don't want to pull the string and they pull the string and they freak out, you're probably onto something. You at least chose the correct people to perform it for, that's for sure. But that's what you want when you do this trick. You want those big reactions, and you want people to understand the danger involved in it. So if you're getting reactions like that, that's great. Continue to evolve and think about your routine, but you're on the right track. If you end up with people that are just like, don't want to participate, right? Like, I don't want to pull the string. No, this is stupid. Like, no. Something needs to shift in your presentation, your approach, possibly the things that you did before the trick, or just simply like choosing the wrong type of people to view this type of trick, right? So really be mindful when you're performing the routine and make adjustments every time you do it, because this trick, more than so many other pieces of magic that you might have learned along the way, requires that type of thought to make it even better in the long run, because this can be a reputation-making piece for you. So watch your audience, make adjustments, and know your motivations for doing the trick. When people watch this trick, like, take away the danger, right? Take away the danger aspect of the fishing hook. This is simply like a 1 in 4 chance type of trick, or however many strings are involved. If you just showed this trick, like, here, pick the correct string, it's not very impressive. And I'm not saying that you can't make the end of hook like a magical effect, like, look, you guys somehow picked the only string that wasn't attached. Of course you can. Of course you can, with the correct presentation. I'm just saying, at the end of this trick, one of the last things your audience is thinking about is like, wow, how is the last one the one tied to the fish hook? They're just like still coming down off the idea that you were pulling strings out of your mouth that were tied to fish hooks and all of that. Later on, they'll put it together and be like, man, how did we end up with the last one? And maybe in the moment as well, but trying to sell that moment of like, you guys somehow picked the only one, play with that in your presentation. Either try to really sell that, or if it's not something that really seems to matter, don't worry about it too much. Play more onto the crazy, gross out aspect of the routine, and you might get different results. Just trying to give you some different variables to play around with in your routine. But the best thing is like, it's just to know why you're doing the trick. Like, know what your motivations are. Is it to scare people? That's fine. If it's to get attention, it's also fine. If it's to add like an element of danger to your show, these are all great reasons to want to do this trick. But it's just important to know why you want to do it. And I wrote down a quote from one of my favorite performers ever, Bob Cassidy. And he said, why perform, not hook, but so why would you perform the roulette routine? And Bob said, because people underneath it all really like to see someone face death and win. Plus, it's fun to scare the hell out of them. So before you present the effect, decide what your motivations are, think about the effect that you are conveying, and how you will present it. And And I think those are important things to think about before you ever show this routine to an audience. Here's some more ideas for performance and handling of hook. There's been a lot of people that have done this since it's been released. You can search for hook online and you'll see all sorts of different performances out there. And there's a lot of creativity in these performances as well. And most of them have to do with the clarity of effect. And what I mean by that is the situation of not being able to talk when it comes to the routine. And there's been some really cool ideas as to how to accomplish that. One is via use of cue cards, right? So you could theoretically have some pieces of like a notepad that has instructions on it. You could start by having the hook already in your mouth and having the pieces of string hanging from it, right? So you could just have a cue card that says, pull a string, and have somebody walk up and pull a string, and then turn it over, and the next cue card says, pull another. They pull another, and another, and another, until the last one when you pull it out, right? That's a way to perform it. But it's interesting because you're able to communicate while the hook is in your mouth. Similarly, I've seen people put this in their mouth and then have a video play where it's them on the video and there's instructions. That's something you could do with your phone, right? So you could record a video of yourself presenting the trick for you, right, in the moment. So that's a cool thing to think about as well. You could pause it in the moments that you need to pause it at while the spectators hear what you have to say, and you could do it that way. So think about, there's some room for creativity there on ways to communicate with the hook in your mouth. All right. One thing I've played around with is when I present it, mine is not set up at the moment here. I'll put one on here. Is the idea of, here I'll just hold the strings as if they're if they're on the hook. Of course they are not. It's the idea of, if I was going to have 5 strings here, maybe one of them I would pull out while it's still in my hand, right? So I have 5 strings, and at the beginning of the trick, I give my little explanation where I say, I have 5 strings. Now 4 of them are not attached to anything. One of them, however, is attached, tied to this hook. Okay, so 4 are separate and 1 is tied. And I pull just one of the strings out from in my hand. Okay, and I say to them, in a moment, you're also going to pull a string. And I promise you, whatever string you pull is going to be one of the separate ones. Now it's kind of fun because they don't know that this is going in my mouth, but I've been able to illustrate a single strand being pulled from my hand, which I think is just a nice little thing. I wouldn't jump through hoops to show separate strands here. I think you can get caught up as like a magician trying to like do false counts with the strings and all that. It's not really worth it. But I do think it's kind of a fun thing to like pull one out ahead of time there, just to help illustrate verbally what the spectator is going to be doing. Okay, so that is just a nice little thing. Another thing that I do when I do my routine is I carry around this Band-Aid and just a hand cleaning wipe. Okay, these are just 2 little things. My friend Seth Race gave me this tip. I place this in my tin with my hook like that and close it up. So when I start the routine, I say I have something in here really dangerous, and I start by pulling out the Band-Aid and the hand wipe, and then I pull out the fishing hook. Okay, so something to consider. You can keep some first aid materials in your tin. Kind of fun, cool thing to think about. Another thing I've seen people do, and I don't own any of these, otherwise I would have brought one, and I know they exist, are those blood capsules, right? So if you're kind of that wild and crazy performer, you could even store it in here and steal it out when you start the trick. A little blood capsule on the inside of the tin, take the blood capsule out, toss the hook in the blood capsule in your mouth, and then I don't know what you do with it, but if you're that style performer, it's not for me, and it's probably not for most people, but it would be pretty easy to load something like that in your mouth because you got all the time in the world to do it, right? Also playing with the strands. This strand is just simple string from any craft store, and you can use like hemp string, which is really good as well. They sell colored string at any craft store. So you can have different colored strings, which is really cool. I've even seen people hang little tags from each string, like numbers. So you could like have people choose a number or choose a color that they're going to pull ahead of time. Like I want you to, like while you're holding everything here, you could say which you want, blue, you want red, you want, okay, great. You put it in your mouth and do the routine, because then it's like really clear. They know exactly what string they're going to pull, right? So you could play around by having different colored strings. If you're going to get different string, this string is the best. Okay, that string is so good, it just slides right out of there. Just make sure with every string you buy, slides nice and easy out of the key ring. Obviously, you know how to test that, okay? So test the string before you go and do it. You shouldn't have a problem. And last but not least, I want to talk about switching the hook. Again, it's not necessary. But if you were going to think about doing this as like a stage piece or something, you might want to give it away as a souvenir. You'd have to start by finding some fish hooks that are similar, and they obviously do exist, the triple barbed fish hook. So you get some of those, and the very simple way to do it is once at the end of the trick, when you pull the fish hook out of your mouth, nobody, and I promise nobody, is going to look at this thing. You have all the time in the world to place that back in the tin, close it up, and then put it in your back pocket. At the same time, you would have a secondary tin in your other pocket. And you could, after you place this in your place away, you could just say, oh, here, let me, I have something for you. Pull the other tin out, which contains the real hook on a real tied string, and say, I have something for you. I want you to keep this. And you know, you could probably put it like in like a jewelry box or something like that for them to take home. You do not need to do this, but I wanted to throw it in your head. If this trick becomes like a staple for you and you decided to take it to the stage, it might be something nice to do at the end of the trick to, you know, have an end with a real fish hook, but not necessary at all. In that case, you would also have to have, well, I mean, you could get another hook, probably want another one if it's something you're gonna be doing all the time. So you could have a duplicate tin, but you could also use like an Altoids tin or like literally any style, you know, prop that you could find that would suit the performance that you are doing, okay? Giving you a lot on hook, and that is everything that I know. So that's it. Let's jump to the end of the video. Well, thanks for watching all the way to the end. If you did, that means you are allowed to do this trick. If you didn't, you're not watching this. But it is very important that you take the time to place that hook in your mouth, get comfortable with it in your mouth, and get comfortable with people pulling on it before you ever do this in front of a live audience. And again, do not perform this unless you are 18 years or older. With that said, show this to somebody. This trick is wild, and you will have a blast performing it. Just do it. That's the best thing I can say, and you'll either love it or you'll hate it. It's just one of those. Speaking of this trick, if you did purchase this, head on over to Penguin and leave it a great review for us. This method is so good, such a strong secret. It deserves a 5-star review. So head on over to the site and give this a great review for us. It helps everybody understand that this is something that can be done, and they should be doing it in a close-up situation. So if you're looking for something dangerous like this, let everybody know. Let us know how good it is. On behalf of everybody here at Penguin Magic, thank you for your purchase. Thank you to Eric Ross. Again, my name is Nick Locapo. I'll see you next time.